the human rights of our citizens.
They kept telling me that there's no need for me to get a lawyer, yet they were treating me like an actual criminal.
So does this not constitute as an anti-gay law? And if it does, why has America not taken the same action?
It's the infamous offshore torture chamber operated by the US and Cuba.
The devil is a liar and the father of all lies, and he's so good at his profession that he'll take a lie, package it so well that you believe it is the truth. When we heard that Uganda has adopted an anti-gay law, thousands, if not millions of people were against this law, were against Uganda, and they thought that this was an inhumane thing for Uganda to do. Why? Because the West had told us all that an anti-gay law is something that is an anti-human rights law. So obviously, you're a loving person who cares about people, who cares about the well-being of people, who cares about the protection of people's rights. So automatically, you will stand against something that the West says stands against human rights, right? Right? But hold up just a minute. Does America really care about human rights, or does it care about appearing to care about human rights? Based on a clip that we're about to see, America cares more about its reputation than it does its reality. It violates the human rights of many people in the countries that it interacts with, but the truth of these violations is buried, while the actions of other countries is hung out in public for the world to see. Check out this video, but before you do, please note that it contains some graphic content.
It's that time of the year again. The US has released its annual human rights report. Human rights in other countries, of course. The report is out, and nothing in it stands out, except for the breathtaking hypocrisy of America. It talks about Russian war crimes in Ukraine. It talks about Iran's crackdown on anti-hijab protesters, China and its treatment of Uyghur Muslims in Xinjiang, the horrors of the Myanmar military. The story gets worse when you focus on human rights. A certain Guantanamo Bay episode comes to mind. It's the infamous offshore torture chamber operated by the US and Cuba. They call it Gitmo. The images of abuse shocked the world. America promised to shut it down, but it hasn't. And why do they have it in Cuba? Because such torture is not allowed on American soil, so they do it anyway in Cuba, and they don't mention it in the human rights report featuring Cuba either. We wonder why. Also, speaking of torture, we are reminded of Abu Ghraib. It was a prison in Iraq where locals were tortured. The images sent shockwaves through the world, a blinding testimony of how America honors human rights. Did the perpetrators face justice? How many high-ranking officials were allowed to go scot-free?
So America drafts a report on all countries and excludes itself. How honest, how noble of them to do that. If you are still not convinced, if you still think that America cares about human rights, and more specifically, the human rights of homosexual people, tell me, why has it done nothing to UAE, that is the United Arab Emirates, who also have an anti-gay law, who also mistreat homosexuals in their country? Take a look at this example.
Story of how I was arrested in Dubai for being gay and impersonating women. They kept telling me that there's no need for me to get a lawyer, yet they were treating me like an actual criminal. They took pictures of me. I was interviewed multiple times, and the whole time I was just crying before I was taken to the station. And in the station, I was told that I had to sleep the night in there on the benches that are in the rooms. They told me, you're not even accepted in your own country. Why would you think we would accept you? And all I could tell them was, I didn't know. And the truth is, I really didn't. And after that, I was sent to jail for a few days before I was put on a flight to go out. After I was sent to jail, I was forced to change my clothes in front of all the other officers. I was heavily assaulted, heavily bullied. I was constantly being harassed by everyone, and I have truly never felt this unsafe. And the funny thing is, I escaped my own country to not go through this nightmare, and here I was actually living it.
The Human Dignity website clearly states the following regarding UAE. The United Arab Emirates criminalizes same-sex sexual activity between men and between women. The gender expression of trans people is also criminalized. Sentences include a maximum penalty of death. There is evidence of the law being enforced in recent years, and LGBT people are subjected to discrimination and violence. So does this not constitute as an anti-gay law? And if it does, why has America not taken the same action as it did with Uganda? Why has nothing been done to the UAE? Is this not showing you that it's not really a matter of protecting human rights, more specifically the human rights of homosexual people, but rather a matter of taking specific situations and circumstances to appear as noble, to appear as justice warriors, to appear as advocates of the world? That's what I think is happening with America, because the situation in Uganda is very similar to the situation in UAE, yet severe action has been taken against Uganda, yet no action has been taken regarding UAE. If that doesn't convince you, read the following with me. The ruler of the United Arab Emirates, Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed, is a key American ally who counts on the United States to defend his country. But he has traveled twice to Russia over the past year to meet with President Vladimir V. Putin, and in June, his country was celebrated as the guest of honor at the Russian leader's flagship investment forum. Later this month, the Emirati and Chinese air forces plan to train together for the first time. A notable shift for an oil-rich Gulf nation that has long relied on American fighter jets, weapons, and protection. This is another example of the hypocrisy of America. America started threatening South Africa for having relations with Russia and with China. Now, what I just read shows that UAE is starting and having relationships with Russia and China. But America has done nothing to UAE, yet they confidently and promptly threatened South Africa when South Africa did the same. If you're not aware of what happened with South Africa, China, and Russia, as well as America, read the following with me. We are seriously concerned that hosting the 2023 AGOA, that is the African Growth and Opportunity Act Forum in South Africa, would serve as an implicit endorsement of South Africa's damaging support for Russia's invasion of Ukraine and possible violation of U.S. sanction laws. This coincides with the U.S. Commerce Department's prohibition of exports to 3 South African flight schools accused of training Chinese military pilots. It's interesting that the U.S. is taking a much more aggressive stance now. And just so we're clear, the threats made by America to South Africa were made in June of 2023, while the decision or this action, the news article regarding UAE partnering with Russia and China, took place in August of 2023. Since America had already set a precedence in June of 2023 that this is how they deal with countries who deal with Russia and China, they should follow the same stance. They should take the same stance regarding UAE, right? You have set it. You've made it clear to say, if you are a friend of America and you choose to partner with Russia, you choose to partner with China, we're going to threaten you, we're going to take steps such as this, right? So why don't they take the same bold, aggressive, loud steps against UAE? Is it not because South Africa, like Uganda, is more of a poor country, is more of a very dependent country on America, while UAE is full of oil, is very bold and confident in its own stance? Let's hear from the wise King Solomon regarding matters of this kind. In Proverbs 14 verse 20, he said, "The poor man is hated even by his own neighbor, but the rich has many friends." In Proverbs 19 verse 7, he said, "All the brothers of the poor hate him. How much more do his friends go far from him? He may pursue them with words, yet they abandon him." Jamaica, like Africa, is experiencing the same, disguised as protection of human rights, and specifically the human rights of homosexuals. Take a look at this.
And developing now, the United States diplomatic ties with Jamaica could soon be in jeopardy. There are reports Jamaica is refusing to accredit the spouse of a gay American diplomat. Local 10's Glenna Milberg live now with the Jamaican consulate in Miami with what she's learned today. Glenna.
Calvin, the diplomats are being very diplomatic. According to them, everything that's happening is standard operating procedure. But the consul general here is one of several diplomats whose posts here are being cut short, and it's apparently over differences that a U.S. ambassador there is having over his same-sex spouse. Jamaican journalists report the consul general is among several Jamaican diplomats asked to end their time in the U.S. in response to their government's decision.
While Africa and Jamaica face this, what is happening in KSA, that is the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia? Mind you, according to the Human Dignity Trust website, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is just like UAE, it's just like Uganda. They too have laws, anti-gay laws. So if America wants to say something, wants to threaten, wants to distance itself from Uganda for having these laws, then surely Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates should also see the same actions being taken against them, right? Take a look at the Human Dignity Trust, what they say about Saudi Arabia. The exact same thing that they say about Uganda, they say about KSA, and they say about UAE. Even worse than that, there's an article, it's not from 2023, but all the way from 2010, where evidence of anti-gay law, anti-gay behavior was recorded, not only experienced, but recorded in KSA. So where were these human rights advocates? Where was America when KSA was doing this? What action did they take regarding KSA? Is it a matter of human rights, or is it a matter of appearing to care about human rights when dealing with countries that you don't deem as important, when dealing with presidents who don't have the confidence to speak as boldly, when dealing with people who don't have oil that you want, or who you can take oil and diamond and various resources from without them making a ruckus, without them, taking a bold stand against you? Do you as America really care about human rights, or do you care about appearing to care about human rights? Man sentenced for homosexuality. A 27-year-old Saudi Arabian man is reported to have been sentenced to 500 lashes and 5 years imprisonment by a court in Jeddah for the criminal offense of homosexuality. Is this not an anti-gay law? Is this a country not displaying what Uganda was threatened with sanctions for promising to do, but not actually doing yet? And if Uganda was threatened, why has KSA not been threatened. Please share your thoughts and your views in the comment section below. I'd really like to hear what you think is the reason why America has chosen to act in one country and chosen to be silent in another country. In my personal opinion, America knows that every single person desires to be a good person. Every person desires to be a good neighbor, desires to do unto others as they would have them do unto them, right? We all, in our conscience, in our desire to be as moral as possible, want to do good and be good. And America is smart enough to play on that, to play on those emotions, on our conscience. And they know that if they say that this is against human rights, if they say we are fighting for people's human rights, we think that by supporting them, we are supporting a positive cause. We think that by supporting them, we are doing our conscience, we are doing the people, our neighbors, a good service. And by not standing with America, who is shouting about human rights, then we are against people. We are against the least of these. We are against the oppressed, the minority. But although you desire to do good, although you desire to be loving and to care and to support minorities and everyone, it's always best to test what anyone says, test what I say, test what America says, what the government, what anybody says, and really evaluate to see, are these people staying true to their word? Are these people all talk, or are they putting action to their talk? Remember the report that they wrote when we first started this episode that clearly indicates that they are, one of the worst in terms of protecting human rights. It's only that they don't display it. It's only that they don't include it in reports. They are very quick to judge other countries for not adhering to human rights policies and human rights laws. But when they do it, they are very quick to sweep it under the carpet.
For the struggle waged by the Human Rights Campaign is about more than any policy we can enshrine into law.
The human rights abuses in North Korea.
Human rights around the globe.
And the human rights of our citizens.
Throwing around the human rights word, America has managed to serve us with a beautifully frosted cake that looks delicious from the outside, but when we begin to take a bite, we realize that it's actually made of cardboard. It is a terrible imitation that leaves a bitter taste of manipulation. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it as always. I'm Moagi, and in case you missed the last video regarding a young teenage girl who was kicked out of class, out of school, for having dreadlocks, please take a look at the video on your screen now. Please consider subscribing if you haven't already. Leave a like and leave your comment, share with others, and let's meet again next time. Until then, bye for now.